Hello, Devlin Bishop here with you, and welcome to my official Christmas episode. Yes, I know last week I had the wonderful chance of spending time with my co-host, Doug Miller, and that was kind of a pre-Christmas special. It was great talking Christmas with him, but tonight it's just me, and I'm going to, basically fill this up with a whole bunch of Christmas stories, Christmas thoughts, just anything I can think of. I'm sitting here, it's a beautiful night, snow falling outside my window, I've got the fireplace roaring, I've got a nice hot chocolate sitting here. Okay, none of that is true. I'm here in front of my studio, I'm in just my regular, I'm here with some shorts and some, tank top. There's no fireplace. That's in the other room. And it's one of those DVD ones that you put on and, you can feel like it's a fireplace. And, I have a thing. But I'm trying to set a tone. That's called setting a tone for you people who don't know. I like to think of myself as a storyteller, so I'm setting a tone. So let's set that tone again. And I wish it was snowing, and it might be, because I record these a couple of days before they actual air, so who knows, but I've heard it's supposed to be a very dry December, so we can only hope. So let's set the tone again. Hope I haven't killed the mood for you. Snow gently falling outside my window, roaring fire, looking at the beautiful tree all plugged in, and a nice cup of hot chocolate. That's my beverage of choice for the holiday season. I know some people like eggnog, and some people like, something a little stiffer, if you know what I mean. But please, join me. Grab beverage of your choice, and hopefully we'll make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. One thing I don't have to fake is the Christmas spirit. This is my favorite time of year, and I am filled with it right now. And I'm happy, because last year I was a little out of sorts. And it's weird, because last Christmas I wasn't going through all the stuff that I went through this year. It's just, I was running behind getting my Christmas shopping done. It just seemed like things were sneaking up on me. But for some reason, this year it's all falling into place nice. The Christmas shopping is done. I've pretty much got all my, snacks and stuff that you need for, entertaining and stuff for the holiday season. I have a little wrapping to do, but that's about it. Besides that, I'm in full-fledged Christmas spirit, and that's a nice thing to have. I was worried about getting into retail, because I knew some people told me that retail can really take its toll on you. I've loved Christmas ever since I was a little kid. And, of course, we all loved Christmas as a kid, and then I hear some grown-ups talk about, losing it and along the way, and some tell me, thank God or whoever for my children because they've made me find it again. But you can tell that's not really their spirit. They're just, happy to see their kids happy and stuff. I'm lucky to say that I've never felt that way. I've had off years, but I always still get that warm and fuzzy feeling, whether it's spending time with friends or watching just a special. I sometimes get that, even Christmas music. But getting into retail, people said you might have trouble because you're going to see a lot of greed of the season, like people just bringing it all down to gifts and money and, feeling so privileged. Not to mention, at Target we didn't have music playing, but at Value Village we have music playing, and that hasn't bothered me at all. They haven't bombarded me. I've heard a couple songs a little bit too much than I should, but they still mix in regular stuff, and I love that. I don't like when they go full Christmas. I don't know, what did I love about it as a kid? Well, probably as a kid I loved the presents. I loved the idea of opening stuff, and, But as I look back, the memories I have of my childhood are not of me opening gifts. It's the decorating the tree. It's the family getting together. It's the neighbors that used to come and drop by and visit, and, hanging with my friends. And Yeah, to me, the gifts are just the gravy. Now, I know a couple people, we touched on this last week, too, about commercialism. A lot of people are like, oh, Christmas is too commercialized. You know what? Suck it up. We live in a world that everything is commercialized. And if I look back at specials, TV specials from the 50s and 60s, they had Christmas, they were, this, the parades, everything is linked to buying stuff. And if you think about it, if you go back to the first Christmas, they brought gifts. If a religious person, Jesus was born, what did they do? They came and traveled with gifts. So come on, merchandising has been right since the first Christmas. So you can't tell me it's been too commercialized. Everything's commercialized now. It's just the world we live in. I just think as we get older, we see it more, and we, think it's more, but I think it's always been there. What I don't like about Christmases is when we were kids, and I think the world was, and yeah, here I go talking about, oh, the world was a better place when I was a child, but it's more than that. I don't remember it being as hectic as it used to be. We didn't have schedules to keep. We visited people, on certain nights, and we had traditions, and we stuck with them. Now all I see is people like, oh, Christmas Eve, I have to be here. Then in the morning, we open presents. Then we have to go over to my, partner's, Christmas. And then we have to go over to some friends. And I don't remember it being that chaotic. Now, my parents weren't big socializers, and we were kind of the black sheep of the family, so we didn't get a lot of visitors. But we did get a lot of neighbors coming over, and that was the part I loved. But I remember nights where you could just keep your door open and have people in the neighborhood stop by, and I think we're kind of losing that now, because we're on such strict schedules, And I think that is more to be worried about than commercializing and merchandising, because honestly, you don't have to fall for that. If the commercials on TV bother you, then turn them off when they're on and come back to your show after. Flick around, go walk around the apartment or your house or something for a bit. But it's those schedules that we're on that I think is more harmful to Christmas, because I think we just make it little vignettes of where we have to be at what time, and you're always worrying about the next thing. I do like getting presents. I don't want people to think that I don't. I love the times we open up gifts, but to me, presents are like the gravy of it all. I like just the feeling I get with Christmas. And even in retail, even though I do see some horrible, horrible customers and stuff, you look for those bright little moments, and where the holiday spirit kicks in. And yes, they are becoming few and far between. But you know what? One of those moments can cancel out so many negative stuff. And that's one thing I really, really, absolutely look for. And it could be as small as, people just letting somebody in their line because they have less to buy, or we have something called, these saver cards where, you get stamp cards and you collect them. And some people are gluttons and they just keep collecting and collecting and collecting. And hey, it's nothing wrong. That's what we promote it for, and that's what you can do. But it's nice to see when people have full ones and they just know they have too many to use before the time limit. And they literally go looking for people with big carts full of stuff and give it to them so they can get their 30% off. And it's moments like that that are actually quite nice. And then seeing them do that in front of their kids, which is something that could definitely, rub off on them. Like, hey, we have the chance to make somebody smile. And that's the moments that I look for. I've got Christmas music playing. I'm mixing it with my regular stuff. A couple of days before Christmas, my MP3 will be just littered with Christmas music. I don't go too close to it because I actually like Christmas music mixing with other songs. You can get some nice mixes and stuff. We've already started doing some entertaining, and it's been fun. We've had a few friends over and got to see my sister-in-law, who I don't get to see all that often since my brother and her separated. You know, we still keep in touch, but she's a very busy lady, and we were surprised. We just threw it out there a day that we had free, and she was available, and we took that, and she came to visit us, and we had a couple of friends over that she hadn't seen in ages, and all we did was we had a nice meal and watched cheesy Christmas specials, and it was just absolutely fabulous. I've got a couple of more things, my annual trip to Whitby to see my brother and his family, and my nieces and nephews, and my great-nieces, and we get to spend, some time with them. And then, I got a couple of close friends that I'm looking forward to, doing little gift exchanges and stuff like that. And again, the gifts are the gravy. It's actually spending time with them, because as I get older, I realize that, and I've said it more and more, it's going to become a catchphrase of mine, but time is precious. And when people give you that time, it is just probably the best thing they could ever give you. And, yeah, I love that. I'm starting to feel the warm and gushies coming over. Later in this, I'm going to break up some sets and tell some of my favorite Christmas stories. I've told them before in public. Some are probably ones I shouldn't tell in public, but they've become favorites, and I want to regale with them. And I don't know, I kind of feel like I'm going to get this name wrong. I think it's Stuart MacLeod. He's a very prominent Canadian Christmas storyteller, and he does tours where he talks about the, little stories about his life or something. And I guess in some ways, even the movie Christmas Story was based on, Christmas short stories that come together. And I'm glad I have some to share. One thing I think everybody should get to do, and I don't care if you're a woman, man, I think everybody should get to play Santa Claus at just once in their life. It's an amazing experience. I have played it twice so far. I played it for a group of kids, and I played it for a bunch of drunken lawyers. And both different, very different situations, but both very interesting. The lawyers had a lot of fun. You could tell the people that were playing along with it, and, some of the higher-ups that were just like, don't give me that Santa crap, But it was still a lot of fun. And I got paid, probably one of the most things I ever got paid for as far as my acting and improv go. And trust me, when you're playing Santa Claus, because he's such an iconic person in this world, you gotta give him justification. You can't just, you can't be an asshole playing Santa. And the one where I got to play it for kids, it was just an absolutely amazing. I was so nervous. Because you're representing, obviously I'm not the real Santa Claus. So you're representing for those kids. And so you have to bring it. You're bringing your A game, and these kids are absolutely wonderful. But there's a couple that are going through the stages of, I'm not sure I really believe in you anymore, and others that aren't. And, what helps me is that, I still have a belief in Santa Claus. I know he's out there. I feel it around the Christmas spirit. And so that really helps you stay focused on your character work. But, you get the odd little kid that's like, what's my name, or something, and you're just like, yeah, I don't remember, and you have to come up with something clever, like, hey, I have so many kids all around the world. It's very hard to just remember one or two, so, usually that helps, and then they'll tell you their name, and, you'll remember it. You also get your listening skills up, which I've learned from improv, and listen to like parents or something calling their name, and then when you're, hey, Billy or Jessica, and then they're like, oh, you know my name. And that's nice. But I remember, they didn't sit on my knee or anything, which I'm glad, because that's, to me, just very awkward. But I handed out gifts and stuff. And then I remember that they had, like, colorings and crafts going on. And I remember just walking around, always staying in character. And then at one point, I just sat with this little girl who was coloring. And she was so into her coloring. And she just was like, coloring her little reindeer picture, and she just like nothing in the world could bother her. And, you think about how innocent it is and how it's lovely that the world hasn't affected this child in any way. And then for no reason, she just stopped coloring, like for a split second, looked up at me and said, "I love you, Santa," and then went back to coloring. And I think I responded with, "I love you too," and I had a big, huge lump in my throat, because it was just, you could see in their eyes that they had, believed that, I was the real Santa, even for a short second, and I brought joy to them. And it was just liberating. And I think that's why I always say people should get to play Santa Claus, because if that doesn't melt your heart around the holidays, I don't know what will. And it makes up for all the little bad things that happen in the world all through the year. I don't have to go on about how bad this year has been for me, how emotionally I've been a wreck, but I am so glad that for some reason I have found the Christmas spirit this year, found it early, looking forward to it all, and, because I never knew what was going to happen this year, and who knows. But I can tell I'm climbing out of the darkness, and I'm glad that maybe that's what's making me appreciate Christmas this year. Also because I have an amazing group of friends and family that are supportive of me and are always there with a quick word or a hello or a hug. And that is something to be blessed about. So I'm not going to question it. I'm just in the Christmas spirit. I'm happy about it. And I'm going to tell you some Christmas stories. The next one I plan to tell you is a little mature. Not that I think that the whole family gathers around and listens to me. But, my ego sometimes pictures, groups of people getting together to listen to like they did in the old days. And basically, I could be wrong. But, let's keep my ego going for a little bit. But anyhow, I'm going to tell a little story in my next segment. That's a little blue. I'm going to call it Blue Christmas. But I'm going to try to tell it in the most PG version I can. Even though I have said the word assholes already during this Christmas special. But hey, still gotta be me, and unfortunately coarse language does occur sometimes. Anyhow, I'm going to go fill up my hot chocolate some more, maybe a little extra marshmallows. And why don't you grab something, we'll play some Christmas music, and then I'll be back to tell you some more tales of the season. Hello, we are back here on the Christmas edition of the Pirate Radio Show. That would be Devlin's Pirate Radio Show. Not only did I fill up my hot chocolate, but I looked up to see if I got the name right. Yes, Stuart MacLeod is the famous storyteller that goes around and tells stories about Christmas and other stuff too. I've heard him talk. He's a wonderful storyteller, and I'd like to be like him at some point too, because I love telling stories of my past and stuff. At the beginning of the year, I plan to do a segment about one of the inspirations, why I got into this monologuing and storytelling and stuff, but we'll talk about that another time. But if you want to hear some awesome tales of Canadian storytelling, check out Stuart MacLean. There must be stuff online and stuff like that. But do that after you've listened to my show, because my show's pretty damn good too. Anyhow, I talk about this a lot, but one of my favorite things about my youth was that we used to open up our home a lot during the Christmas holidays. And quite honestly, I remember that a lot. Like, because we, from Germany, and I've talked to other Germans, and everybody has their own holidays and traditional things, but we used to open our gifts on Christmas Eve. Not just one gift, we opened all of them up. And I remember the tradition was that we'd go for Kentucky Fried Chicken. We'd always go for like some thing, and I think Kentucky Fried Chicken was the main one we'd go to. And Dad would, get the kids, and we'd all drive to Kentucky Fried Chicken. We'd go on Christmas Eve and get a bucket and all that good stuff. And then when we came home, all our gifts were magically there. Then we'd eat the chicken, and then we would, kind of just visit with people, because we'd have neighbors show up and a couple of relatives. Sometimes my aunt showed up. And then we would open gifts. And it was funny, because sometimes the kids in my neighborhood would come over, and we'd all question why they didn't get their gifts on Christmas Eve. And I couldn't answer it. I always kind of joked that, well, maybe Santa delivers gifts alphabetically, which would be absolutely ridiculous, because he's delivering gifts all over the world. But nobody questioned it for long. It was just that quick thought, like, how come do I have to wait till Christmas morning? But the bishops always open their gifts on Christmas Eve. I didn't know. And my parents just, that's what we did, and we'd stay up as long as we could, and my parents got to sleep in. Well, not my dad usually, because he was up making the turkey and stuff, but it worked out well. They got to drink all night, and we got to open our gifts and play with them, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember we didn't have pop around the house a lot. We used to drink Kool-Aid. I used to love that. I'd ask my mom, how come we never had pop like my other friends had around the house? And they said that, well, because pop is bad for you. It's filled with sugar. Now, back then, when we were making Kool-Aid, I swear we'd use like about 8 cups of sugar to sweeten it. And she'd even be making it when I asked this. And it never dawned on her that, oh no, but Kool-Aid's much better, so let's have Kool-Aid, as she's pouring the 8 cups of sugar in. What I also loved, and a lot of people, I loved when I actually told some of these stories at one of my monologue shows, and my one friend Gary Reed laughs because it's so of its time, but the only time we'd have pop around the house was during the holidays, Christmas through New Year's, and it wouldn't be a case of pop, it would be mix, because it was used for mixing, like whiskey and rum and all the alcohol that they had around the house. And so we were lucky that once in a while during the holidays we'd get to have a can of mix. And I love that, Gary Reed says, oh my God, that is so of its time, like social drinking. And this is a case of mix, and I'm glad that other people related to that, because I always remembered, I never called it pop until I was in my teen years when I started going to buy it myself. Probably when I went from just being a chubby kid to being a little bit more fat was when I started drinking pop on a regular basis. So maybe there's something to it. Maybe Kool-Aid was better, because I was only chubby when I was a Kool-Aid drinker. I don't know. We won't go into it. But anyhow, so we'd get a can of mix, and then the family would, gather. And I think I was mentioning to Doug on the last episode is that when we got to be teenagers, my parents let us have a drink, and our friends that showed up could have a drink. And we wouldn't ask permission from other parents. It was just like, okay, well, you're here, you can have a drink. And My friends loved it, and more my brother's friends, because they were a lot older than me before this tradition died down a bit. But my father was a drinker, and when he drank, the mix would be less and less. So my friends really loved their Christmas drink, and they come at the right time because they knew Mr. Bishop's had a few, and the drinks are going to be a little bit more booze, less mix, if you know what I mean. And, I remember having just so many people in our house at times, and it would, come and go. It was like an open house. But I don't remember us, just, sending out, invitations, or nowadays you'd send out an email. We're having some people together, or an evite, or anything like that, or create a thing on Facebook. You just say, if you're in the neighborhood, drop by. And how many people did? It was crazy. And I loved it. I loved that there was always people there. And, it was it gives me a great feeling thinking about that. And now, as I said, I'm going to tell a blue story here, and this is very true. And I remember my dad had a work get-together on Christmas Eve. And as I said, that's when we did our entertaining. We didn't have our big Christmas meal until Christmas Day. And we'd have our bucket of chicken. But we'd have people over, and relatives would come. And as I said, we weren't really close with relatives, but sometimes my Aunt Doris would come, and she'd get to hang with her. She was also married to my Uncle Pat. Not as nice when he showed up, because he was a crazy drunk. And basically, you never knew what to get with him. Sounds horrible, but we were kind of relieved when he passed away, because he was very abusive to my Aunt Doris, and, we just put up with him because, it's family, And, and so we'd be waiting for my dad, and he had a Christmas party, and it was just like a get-together at his work. But he was late, and my mother was getting worried about him. And she was really worried about him, and it was a bit weird for my mom. But it was probably because he probably had to bring stuff home. I'm not trying to say my parents weren't loving, but I can't picture my mom just like, oh, where is he? I miss him so much. It would be more like he was supposed to be here, and he was supposed to do this and bring this home. And he got later and later, and, we were pushing off going for the chicken, and finally he appeared, and, she was just about to, give him hell. Like, she was just about to rip into him when he hands her this Christmas corsage. It would, I can't even remember what it looked like, but it had, holly berries, and it had, I don't know, I think it said Merry Christmas on it. It wasn't like a floral one and stuff like that, but there was a little bit of, Christmas leaves on it, and holly, and he gave it to her, and she could tell he's been drinking, but she knew he was at a Christmas party. And so she decided, the Christmas spirit was upon us, so she was going to forgive him. And even though he was late, but she was so proud that he took the time to stop and buy her a Christmas corsage. Even though, she thought, my mother wasn't stupid. She probably knew, he knew I was going to give him shit. And that's why he bought it. But she loved it. She wore it so proudly. It was it just stuck on. You just kind of stick it on. And she wore it proudly. And so after she was done, getting all the snacks, everybody always had a full drink. She decided to join us and sit with us, and she was just beaming. And my dad was happy because he wasn't getting in trouble, and he had a drink in his hand, and he probably lined up someone else, hopefully. But back in the day, my dad may have driven. I know he didn't drive home from work because he always took the bus home. But, he may have driven to the KFC with the kids in the car. He may have had a few. It was different times. I'm not saying they were better times, but there may have been some drinking and driving. But anyhow, he was beaming. He wasn't getting in trouble, and so my mother was wearing her corsage proudly. And then basically they started talking, and as I said, we had some company over. Some neighbors had showed up, my Aunt Doris. And my mother just said, so why did the Christmas party go on long? Usually they just have like a meal shipped in. And he said, well, after a couple of us went down to Hanrahan's, which, for anybody who knows, it's been named many things. Hamilton Strip. It's been a couple things. I don't even know if it's there anymore. Usually something bad happens and they change the name of it. But anyhow, he said, we went down to Hanrahan's and had a few drinks. And for those of you who don't know, Hanrahan's is a strip joint. And it was also a drinking establishment. Back then, drink was just as important as seeing strippers. So my mother didn't want to get upset or anything. So she said, okay, she'll let that go. And then she was thinking about it and thinking of where he worked. He worked at Jackson Square. And she said, wait a minute, I don't remember a florist or anything on the way to Hanrahan's. And my father, who, as I said, had a few, just said, oh, there isn't. And then she was like, but how did you get this corsage? Was this something they gave out at the Christmas party? And my father got a little quiet and tried to change the subject. And my mother's like, wait a minute, no, is this something they gave out? Because it doesn't matter. I love it. I love this thing that you gave me. I don't care if it was something they gave just to the ladies. Maybe one of the ladies didn't want it. And he said, no, they did not give it out at the Christmas party. So my dad continually tried to start talking to other people, which you knew was weird because my dad was very quiet, and he didn't talk much. He listened more, or unless he hit a certain level of his drunkenness, and then he'd start singing dirty army songs and stuff. But my mother couldn't let it go, and she was just like, wait a minute, okay, I've let you get away with being late. I've let you get away with a couple of you going to a strip club after. Where did you get the corsage? And he said, well, I got it at Hanrahan's. Hanrahan's. I'm losing my voice here. I'm not getting choked up. It's not one of those stories, I swear. Hold on. And he said, I got it at Hanrahan's. And my mother's like, they were selling corsages at Hanrahan's? Like, did somebody decide, well, we could make some money because of all the husbands feeling guilty, they can take something back at their wife? Well, at this point, my dad knew my mother wasn't going to let it go, so he decided to go in for the kill and tell her exactly where he got it from. And he goes, no, they didn't have a display, people didn't buy it. One of the performers wore it. And it took a minute to remind my mother that Hanrahan's is a place where women used to take off their clothes. And she just looked at him like with just a stare and said, where was she exactly wearing this? And my dad literally said she wore it in her, let's say, her bathing suit area, the bottom half. And my mother took that corsage and just whipped it across the room when she realized that this was actually the costume a woman came out dancing to, and there's my mother wearing it proudly on Christmas Eve. And this has become a notorious story in my family known as the Christmas corsage. And I don't think she talked to him for the remainder of the night. Maybe not even into Christmas morning. Maybe she forgot about it a little bit during the Christmas dinner. But I have never seen her so angry. But she didn't really rip into him. She just gave him a stare and could not believe that he would embarrass her. Now, I giggle through this story, but I know it's not funny to laugh at. But when you look at it in hindsight, it was such a sweet, innocent story, and then how it played out, it just we can't help but giggle whenever, the bishops talk about this moment. One of our proud moments. And trust me, my father probably get a little bit of a laugh out of it, but if my parents are looking down from me and Heather, from heaven, my mother would be just like, I can't believe you keep telling this story. I've told this story a couple times on stage. I remember the one time my brother Paul was in the audience. And I did a show called The Devlin Show, which was a sitcom that I did on stage. And the character Devlin was not necessarily me. It was various reasons of me, but sometimes through the series I'd make up stories that weren't my own. But other times I told real stories. And I remember during one of the Christmas episodes for that is basically I started going into this story. And as soon as I mentioned the Christmas corsage, I could hear my brother just, oh my God, I can't believe he's going to tell this. He got this nervous laugh, and everybody in the audience at this point knew this is going to be a real story. And when I told it, people are regaled by it, and some recoil in horror. But it is one of our Christmas stories. And I'm always proud to tell it because I know it makes people laugh and smile. And as I said, some just cringe or want to run and get a shower. But I love it because it reminds me just of a time I can picture every emotion because my dad was very innocent when he came to that, and the way he constantly tried to get around it. And then finally he just said, there's no way around it. She had it on her, And then my mother just the way she had a temper on her, she was East German, she had a temper. And I can picture every moment of it. So, yeah, sorry, it wasn't maybe the nicest Christmas story, but I'm not gonna apologize anymore because it was our story and I'm sharing it, and that's what it's all about. And don't worry, all my stories aren't this X-rated for Christmas. This isn't a triple Xmas Christmas special, but I had to tell that story because because I wanted to share it with more people, and two, because, when I'm old and gray and I might start forgetting my memories, I want to listen to these podcasts and I'll have a good chuckle because I'm like, I don't remember that. Now, I hope my memory lasts for a long time, but it's there. I put it out on the internet. It's there. It's for everybody to enjoy now. Anyhow, my next story is a much nicer one. We're going to take a bit of a break. We'll get some Christmas snacks out here, whatever you like to snack on during the holiday. I'm going to just, grab something, I'd like to say healthy, but screw it, it's Christmas. I can go have a Christmas cookie if I want to. Anyhow, I'm going to be back after this short break. We're going to listen to some more Christmas music, and I'll be back with a much nicer story that it does involve my mom and dad, so you don't think that they're total, degenerates. Anyhow, I'm going to take a short break. We'll be back. And we are back here on the Devlin Pirate Radio Show Christmas episode. And I am so happy to just be sitting here chatting with you, having a good time. Hopefully you're having a good time too. Regaling you with stories of my past. And I'm going to try to clean it up somewhat a bit after that last one. But before I get to the story I want to tell, one of the things that I'm so lucky to have in my life, besides all the wonderful people, is my partner, Mike Cuthbertson. It's important when you find someone that, you can be different. You can have different likes and stuff, but if you love Christmas and you have a partner that doesn't love Christmas, it can be a real problem. I'm lucky that I found somebody who absolutely adored Christmas. His family Christmases weren't always the best. And, he used to go up to his sister's and he had a really nice time. But he absolutely adores the season more now because he found someone that absolutely just cherishes every moment. We love putting up our tree each year. And our tree is such a beautiful mix of my family's old ornaments mixed with his family's old ornaments. His grandmother made some ornaments that still show up on the tree. And then, we have bought ornaments through the years, mostly pop culture, or we've gotten ornaments as gifts, and they're all on the tree. And I love it because when you hang up these ornaments, they, at least for me, they bring back memories. It could be memories of when we decorated the tree in our past, or it could just be a memory of the person that gave us one. I, for the longest time, I think it kind of broke the other year, and we kind of just held on to it, but we don't hang it on the tree. But I had, ones that my friends made me when we were kids, and we used to hang up on the tree. And, every one I put, as I said, my sister-in-law was here the other day, and when I was a little, not a little kid, but when I first met her, she started dating my brother. She gave me this little wooden squirrel that has an acorn and dressed up in a woolen hat and shirt and a scarf. And I showed it to her and said, "Do you remember this? We're going back to late 70s, early 80s, and I remember waiting for you." And I remember that the exact day she gave it to me, and she was just amazed that we still hang that up on our tree, that we still actually have it. Being sentimental like that, I do. And, I have to admit, pop culture has kind of taken over the tree, because, just ornaments break or lose their shine or fade, but I'm going to always try to keep an assortment on it, because I think it's nice when people go out and, decorate their tree, they have themes, all purple, all things. But I've always been a fan of the gaudy looking Christmas trees, as in the really colorful ones and the ones that you can see just have the ornaments don't match at all, and the reason I like that is just because I can tell that each ornament has a story. As much as I'm not saying that if you choose oh, we're going to do purple and gold this year, and then all the ornaments have to be that. I don't appreciate that you went to that trouble. I still think it looks beautiful. I just personally like to go into someone's home and say, I bet you there's a story behind most of these ornaments, You can see ones that the kids made. You can see ones with names and dates on that, were probably gifts or bought for special reasons. So for me, it's absolutely a wonderful, thing. And over the years, you just keep collecting, and you get more and more, and then some get retired, and, you get rid of some and that. But I like that our tree still is that mix. Because decorating the tree was always a lot of fun at my house, even though it was stressful. It was stressful, I won't lie. I always provided the music. I always made mixed cassettes, and, still to this day, I'll make mixed Christmas CDs for people, just because I love the season. And I used to be in charge of music, and then my dad would put the lights on and stuff, and once it was ready, we could decorate. And then they'd open up Crown Royal, and they would have some whiskey, as we did, and, basically my mother would hand out the ornaments, and we'd hang it up on the tree. Near the end, it was mostly me. My brothers just got older, and just, I'm not doing that anymore. They were they're a lot older than me, but there was a time, but whoever was available would go and do the tree, and I love doing it. And I love that Mike and I keep it, kind of that tradition. We put music on and stuff. Anyhow, but it would be stressful, I won't lie. My parents, fought, and I think sometimes that's how they said they loved each other, because they didn't know any better. And quite frankly, I just remember, she had certain things, she had a set of silver bells that had to go near the top of the tree. Bells had to go to the top of the tree. And, she'd be quick to tell you, there's two red balls too close to one another. And even when my dad, that's where the stress was. I was okay with my mother, shouting out orders and every stuff like that, because I understand she wanted it to look the best possible. But my dad would you could tell he was looking forward to that Crown Royal, because, he'd be putting the lights on or setting up the tree and stuff. And we used to have a real tree at some point, and then we just finally gave it up. I was so upset when we gave up the real tree, but then I was happy. Artificial trees were nice, and, they didn't make them as awkward as they did back in the 70s and stuff. But anyhow, my mother would just be like, it's crooked, this and that, and, it just became like an absolute nightmare. But it was still fun. It was still fun. I'd concentrate on the, Boney M singing, Mary's Boy Child, and, And, Boney M was like a staple in our house. I think most people had that album in the late 70s, 80s. I love that you can still buy it, and they still play it quite a lot. Just because it was such a weird little Christmas album, but it became huge, and probably their biggest selling album, and still sells. Like, you can still go into a Walmart and pick up Boney M's Christmas, and I have a feeling 20 years from now, you'll still be able to go and pick up Boney M's Christmas. It's just that iconic. So anyhow, so it had its stressful moments and stuff, but it always looked nice at the end. And I used to love with decorating the tree is that you'd decorate the tree beautifully. You'd concentrate. Like my mother, as I said, it had to be look as perfect as possible. She knew that there was ornaments that didn't match and stuff, but two blue balls, you'd almost like take out a tape measure to make sure that's too close. Or if it wasn't hanging right. But then I love that for a while there, after it's all done, it looks perfect. You'd throw tinsel on it, which basically would hide everything anyhow. Yeah, make the tree look shiny and nice, but it's like, why are we throwing tinsel covering everything we just did? But that's what we did back in the past, and then they got rid of tinsel. I'm not sure why they got rid of tinsel. I don't know if it was harmful for us. I know my dog we had a dog named Snoopy, and he learned his lesson fast, because every year he'd eat some of the tinsel, but you could tell he learned his lesson fast, and then my dad would go out and see, basically silver glittering in his shit, and knowing that, okay, well, at least he's not eating the tinsel anymore, because he learned the hard way. But, dogs are dumb, and the next year would come, and he'd be eating tinsel again, and forget that, it hurt his tummy and stuff like that. But it's just crazy stuff. Anyhow, then tinsel, I don't know, got outlawed because dogs were eating it or babies were eating it or something. But you can still find it now and again, and sometimes dollar stores carry it. But I notice it's not as openly available as it used to be, because tinsel used to be very popular. But it never made sense to me, because you do all this hard work and then, okay, let's cover it up. Tinsel. Make it look like it was snowing on it. Anyhow, we all had as I said, we all had our own little ornaments. We didn't have, special ones with our names on it or stuff, but we all kind of had ones that we all kind of enjoyed putting up. I think my brothers may have had, hockey ones that, they had their favorite NHL team, or they just had a favorite one. And, as I said, I had my squirrel one that my sister-in-law gave me, and I think I had a couple other ones that I loved putting on the tree. We have a wooden Ebenezer Scrooge that I love, that not many people have Scrooge on their tree, and we still, to this day, make sure Ebenezer goes up. A little tribute to people that don't like Christmas, I guess. But anyhow, one year, I noticed my parents never ever had their own ornaments to hang up. And I was, thinking of getting them some Christmas things, and I wanted to get them a little something else with their Christmas gift. And I decided that they should pay tribute. I should get them something that they can call their own. And so that year I went out and looked for ornaments. And I found this one that's like Santa Claus, but he's shaped like a moon. And it it's just a nice looking thing, and it has a little thing on it that says Dad, 1999. Actually, sorry. It says 1998 on it. Yes. And then I found a beautiful one for my mother, which was like this pink fluffy angel, and she has a halo. And she has one that says Mom 1998 on it, and it must be the same company because it looks like it's like the similar font and stuff. And when they opened it, they were like, "Oh, this is beautiful. This is nice." And I said, "Well, you guys are always helping us with the tree, but you guys really don't have your own ornaments. And I thought you should be represented." And they thought it was really special, and they both hung their ornaments on the tree. 1998, they got their own ornaments. And it was just a little something extra I wanted to do for them. And then, as 1999 came about, my mother passed away in the summer. And, we went through a lot, but all of us agreed we wanted to continue Christmas. It's sad to me when people stop having Christmas once they lose a loved one. And I get it. I totally get why it won't be the same. But the truth of the matter is when you stop doing traditions when people die, you can't blame those traditions dying because of the person that died. That's a horrible thing. It means that they lived in, to me, when a person that I'm close to dies, I live my life harder because I get more time than they did. And when I see people that start giving up, or we just don't do that anymore, yes, traditions probably will change, but that doesn't mean that they have to just go away totally. It so saddens me when I see people that just say, well, Christmas won't be the same, so I'm not even going to try. You know what? Do you really think the person that left wants you to do that? The smiles that you had, the smiles that you had when you did these traditions, you think they want that to stop now that they're gone? Do they think that? I don't think so. I think if I die, I don't want to look down and say, oh my God, they're sad again this Christmas. I want them to say, do Christmas for me. I can't be there, but trust me, I'm going to be there in some sort of way. Anyhow, little rant on that. But anyhow, so what happened was our traditions did change. We used to always have the family Christmas at our home with my mom and dad. And my dad just said, I can't do it this year. I don't want to put the tree up. I don't want to decorate. I don't want any of that. So my brother Ernie suggested that, well, since they had young kids, we should come out there. And, we'd do Christmas Eve and stay over at a hotel. And then we'd, come back and say hi to them on Christmas morning. And that became a new tradition. And it was, at the first couple of years, it was tough because it wasn't what we used to always do. But then a new tradition bloomed out of it, and it was wonderful. And then every year we've changed it up a little bit, and new traditions grow that, I can honestly say have just to be as fond as those ones from the past. Because even though they're different, that doesn't mean that they're going to be bad. It just means they're different and they're new. Now, anyhow, when Mike and I had our first Christmas, we agreed we wanted to decorate, get the whole house looking nice and stuff. And so Mike had a tree, and I asked my dad, could I use the decorations since you don't use them anymore? And Dad said, yeah, actually you should have the decorations because you were the one who kept the tradition of putting up the tree up, and you'd be the one that was always there to help us decorate it. So I think your mother would like you to have the decorations. So, they hadn't been used in a couple of years, and so it was great. So Mike was like, yeah, I think it'd be great. I don't have a lot of Christmas decorations. We bought a couple of new ones, some that commemorate our first Christmas together, and we got a couple of friends gave us some that commemorated that too. And then we were decorating the tree. I had music going, and I said, "This is nice because I haven't done this in a year or two because I didn't." Dad didn't want to do Christmas anymore, and when we went up to Whitby, it was, all decorated, obviously. And then, so we were decorating the tree, and as I'm opening up the boxes, I come across the two that I had bought my parents. The ones that had 1998 written on them. And I just kind of stood there looking at them, and Mike just said, "What is it? Like, is it something bad? Did something break?" And I said, "No. These are ornaments that my parents put up on the tree." And even though my father was still very much alive then, I realized that the year that I bought them was the last year that we did our traditional family Christmas. And I broke down, and Mike comforted me, and I said I wanted them to have a special ornament, but I didn't realize I was commemorating our last family bishop big Christmas before the tradition changed. Because they literally, that was it, 1998. And I proudly put them on our tree, and every year since I've proudly put them on my tree. I usually say a little prayer. I usually kiss them, and then I put them up on the tree, always high, with my mother's silver bells that, the first couple Christmases I always made sure they were high, because that's where Mom wanted them. And I look at them each year and I realize that they're always a part of me. I don't need these ornaments to make them a part of me, but I love that I have them. And I love that I've commemorated the end of an era. Now, as I said, our traditions changed, and I'm not saying they were any, we have really nice memories going to Whitby. And then we changed them up a couple of years ago where we didn't go up Christmas Eve. I wanted to spend Christmas Eve with Mike and watch, cheesy specials, and I just didn't want to go anywhere on Christmas Eve. And so we changed it up again, and they still wonderful memories. And I know as, my nieces and nephews grow up, they're going to change again. And I'm okay with that now because I realize that change is scary, but it can also be a beautiful thing. Anyhow, I had a wonderful time just telling some of my favorite Christmas stories. I've often thought about doing a monologue show, like a total Christmas edition, because I have other Christmas stories to share with you, but unfortunately I've run out of time. And I know you've got a lot to do, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for giving me this time with you, because I know the Christmas season is tough. We got schedules, like I said, lots of shopping, got lots of places to be, places to go. But the fact that you took this time to spend with me, it means so much. I feel so blessed to have you all in my life. The ones I know that tell me they love the show, that the ones I don't know that are listening but are. And if you're a person I don't know, I thank you too. Though I'd love for you to write me an email and tell me what you feel. Anyhow, I am going to continue doing new shows throughout the holiday season. They're just going to be a little different. But the format will stay the same, and I'm going to stick with you through the holidays, and I hope that you've taken this time to share stuff that I shared with you, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas, and I will be back soon, and I look forward to talking to you. Good night.